presentation today is on cybersecurity. This is something that's maybe on many of our minds, or at least it should be. We've seen recent days and months where we've seen some significant cyber losses from straight up cyber as well as fraud happening to our local government agencies around the state. And it's not just here in Utah, it's throughout the country and around the world. This is really an amazing trend that we're seeing in the losses. I saw one statistic as I was prepping for this webinar. They said by 2025, we can expect $10.5 trillion of cyber losses worldwide. And I had to shake my head at that figure. But that's really the direction that we're going. This is a challenging time that we're in, and all of us have an obligation to be aware of this from a fiduciary standpoint, to take care of the finances of our organizations, and from a personal standpoint as well, because it's not just companies that get hacked, that get phished. It can be us in our personal lives as well. So I want to say that this presentation today we call Cybersecurity Basics, because that's really what we're going to talk about, are some basic understanding of the cyber issues that we face. This will be an ongoing series. And so you can watch for more and more in-depth presentations as time goes on. We're not going to talk about the nitty-gritty of networks and firewalls and multi-factor authentication and all of those things that your IT pros need to know, all of those things and have those things in place. We'll talk about some of that, but we're not going to talk about the nitty-gritty details. Because we'll go more into that in the future. We really need to have an idea of what the scope of the problem is and what we're seeing. And so that's the direction that we're going on. Okay, so first of all, an admission from me. I am no tech genius. I am not that guy. You've seen me do webinars on here probably, and you understand that sometimes technology gets the better of me. And if there were any assertion of the thought that I were a tech genius, my IT guy would be laughing. You couldn't hear the webinar happening because of that. I am no tech genius, but I am a risk manager. And this is a major risk to our organizations. We've seen losses, and we see the trend that is happening, and it's not good. And so we want to make sure that everybody has a good awareness of what's out there, and they're doing what needs to be done. Each of us will be more and more involved in this as time goes on and as years go on. So if we go back a little bit,
shall we play a game?
Back in the 80s, Matthew Broderick was in a movie called War Games. It was not nearly as good as Ferris Bueller's Day Off, but it was kind of a look forward into the tech world. I wanted to start out today by playing a game. He wanted to play thermonuclear war. We're gonna start off with the poll as our game today. So Mike, do you want to go ahead and launch the poll?
Yep, it's out there.
Okay, so this is a longer poll, and I apologize for the questions, but hopefully we can get everybody to answer some or most of these. I'm going to read these as we go through. When was the last time you changed your password? Ooh, ouch. Do more than one of your accounts share? Is everybody it is launched, isn't it? I'm not seeing any answers there. So
it is launched. I don't see anybody answer. Go ahead and answer, folks.
There we go.
There we go.
There we got one. I wanted to make sure that it was working. Do more than one of your accounts share the same password? Look at your phone. Are the apps in the operating system up to date? Do you know who is responsible for data and IT security at your organization? When is the last time you trained all of your employees on data security practices? Have you been personally hacked? Has your organization been hacked, attacked, or ransomed, or phished, or whatever? Where does cybersecurity rank on your list of worries? Those are all the questions. It looks like people are actively answering those now, and it'll be interesting to see where we end up. All right, we are at 60%. People are participating. That's great.
That is awesome.
I'm going to let that go for another 3 seconds. You can keep answering, folks, but I'm gonna start going through these because we've got 2/3 of you in already. We're gonna break 3/4 here before we know it. First question: when was the last time you changed your password? One changed it today.
Whoever you are, you're amazing.
Whoever you are amazing. You get that
Gold star
back and the endorphin hit there because you did it right. But the vast majority, 2/3 of you say only when it makes me change it. Okay. Do more than one of your accounts share the same password? 70% say yes. And I have to duck my head in shame on that as well, because guess what? I'm right there. Look at your phone. Are the apps and the operating system up to date? Hey, everybody set up automatic updates, and so we got 94% are there. Awesome, way to go. Do you know who is responsible for data and IT security at your organization? Yes, 92%. Good job. When's the last time you trained all of your employees on data security practices? 45% this year. Outstanding. I have given this presentation at a couple of conferences, and it has never been that high. So congratulations, good job on getting that done. Have you been personally hacked? About 30% have been personally hacked. Some people, 2%, one person says, how many times have I been hacked? Has your organization been hacked, attacked, or ransomed? About 30% say yes. I'm here to say it's probably more than that, whether you know it or not. Where does cybersecurity rank on your list of worries? 62% said high. Now we may have a different, you can go ahead and end the poll, Mike, if you want. This may be an interesting sampling because you signed up for a cybersecurity webinar. Maybe I have to click it. Did it go away?
I got it.
Okay. It's just still on my screen there. Those questions might open our minds just a little bit to what some of our risks may be. Well, let's dive in. We know that cyber risk. I can't get rid of the polls off my screen there. There we go. This is a target-rich environment, 1 billion websites, billions of accounts out there, and massive amounts of dollars. Like I said, this one statistic that I saw, or projection, said they predict $10.5 trillion in losses by 2025 worldwide. People are attacked every day in one way or another, and we're seeing more and more that our organizations around the state of Utah are getting hit. Who gets hit? Well, financial, health sector, government, including local governments, infrastructure. We've seen over the last couple of years where pipelines have been shut down, power grids have been impacted, transportation services. I attended a conference recently, and it was the Rural Water Conference, and they had major focus on their infrastructure on water. What if somebody can hack into our water systems and start turning valves and change where water is going, or turn pumps on when they shouldn't be? That's some major risk to our organizations. Just back on this one, on healthcare, personal health information is far more valuable than credit information. People would rather get your information about your health and your prescriptions and those types of things to commit insurance fraud than get your credit card number. It's worth far more on the dark web for your health information than it is for your credit card information. Oh, and they're since I'm telling story, whoops, telling stories about all of this, there have been cases where people have hacked into healthcare facilities and actually changed doses of drugs, where they had the ability to log in and change dosage through an IV. That's some pretty scary stuff. They've hacked into lab results, and it's a scary time in that world. Big giant infrastructure organizations have hit, giant retailers. Sony was hit. I attended a cybersecurity conference a couple of years ago where they talked about Sony when they were hit with the CryptoLocker virus. It locked up their entire payroll system. So an organization the size of Sony couldn't make payroll. They couldn't pay, they couldn't write checks or do direct deposits for their employees. So their option was they brought in armored cars full of cash and they counted out payroll to their employees. Giant insurers, there are 80 million health insurance records when Anthem was hit. Office of Personnel Management, that's the federal government's human resource agency, was hit, and they lost about 23 million records, including service people from the military, divisions of the military. These are major hits to giant organizations. Even the military, you can see some distinct similarities between our F-35 fighter and China's J-31. It's basically like they got our blueprints for our F-35 fighter and built their own. I don't know how they would do that, but I got a fair idea that it had something to do with electronic espionage. I know people that work in the military, and they say a hack or an attack on their systems happens at least daily, if not multiple times daily. It's a constant battle that they're fighting with organizations that don't mean our military well, are trying to hack in. All right. So we have all of these large organizations that have been hit, but there's a big but, and that is small organizations are a favorite target, because our small organizations may not be as sophisticated in our systems. We still have money. We still have things that can be hacked if they want to do that. And so we have to be aware that size doesn't matter. Your location doesn't matter. The internet penetrates every part of this planet. Even if you don't own a computer, you are at risk from a cyber hack. And recent losses that we've seen among our local governments in the state really highlight these risks, where we've had people insert themselves into email conversations and make themselves look as if they're a consultant or somebody that's involved in a process, and are able to get money from that. We've had multiple hacks where people have, I won't say it's a hack, it's more of just a straight up fraud, where an organization is contacted by a vendor, a trusted vendor, somebody that they've been working for, an engineering firm or other organization, and have been requested that they change bank tracking information, or transfer information, and ask for payment to a new bank. Hey, we changed our bank. We need to change our routing information so we can get paid. And the organizations did it and transferred money until the vendor called up and said, hey, we didn't get paid this month or for the last 3 months. What do we do? And then they found that issue. So it is a challenging time. Here's a quote. As we start off, our top 14 best practices that we wanted to hit you with. There's no silver bullet. The only thing that we can do is work and consistently be aware, take action, and be disciplined. That is the most important part of this. the hackers only have to be successful once. We have to get it right all the time. And so we have to be disciplined in this. The first part of our overall best practices is to admit that it will happen to us. We will get hacked. I got hacked, and I say hacked is that's kind of the general term. I got spearphished. I was across the street, looking across the street at North Salt Lake. I went over there for a visit one day, and just like I do every time prior to going into a visit, it's a habit I have. I check my phone to see if I have any phone calls or texts or voicemails or emails prior to going into that, if there's anything that's important. And there was one. There was an email from Steve Hansen, the CEO here at the Trust. And of course, I'm going to take a look at that one. And it said, I need to talk to you. I need to talk to you urgently. And so I hurried and responded to the email and said, I'm just going into an appointment. I will talk to you when I get out. And so I did my appointment and came back across the street to the Trust. And I walked into Steve's office and I said, Steve, what do you want to talk to me about? And he looked at me with a confused look. He's like, what are you talking about? I said, you sent me this email. He said, you wanted to talk to me. And he's like, I didn't send you an email. And I'm like, oh man, they got me. Now, I didn't go and buy gift cards, or I didn't give any information or anything like that. But they got me, right? They sent an email that was designed to look just like Steve Hansen's. And it had all of the hallmarks of a Steve Hansen email. And I didn't check. I was in a hurry. Now, I didn't lose anything. I didn't give up any information or anything like that. But we all need to admit that it can happen to us. And so today, as we go forward, I just want all of you out there in internet land to say, hello, my name is, and insert your name. My organization can and will be hacked, phished, scammed. There will be attempts, and we're going to have to deal with those. But we can deal with it, and we can plan, and we can prepare, and we can respond if something bad should happen. So the next on our list of best practices is to create a team. I can't just wait for a bad problem to happen to create a team. And so right now, on a piece of paper, write down who would be on our team to respond to a cyber hack, to a loss of information, to a fraud scheme. Who will be involved? It's not just the IT folks, right? It's not just the financial folks, although they're really critical. All functional units need to be part of this team. So your department heads need to be involved and aware, and we need to outline ahead of time what this team's going to do. Third best practice, identify your enemies. Who is it out there that could be out to get our organization? Now, sometimes it's somebody who really has an axe to grind against you, somebody that doesn't like you because of policy, because of potholes, because of who knows what it may be that your organization did. One favorite target is law enforcement. So if you have a law enforcement agency, police department, sheriff's office, you may have some literal enemies out there that don't like law enforcement. Who wants to steal from you? Who could stumble upon you? Most of these attacks don't have anything particular involved with the hacker and the organization. Sometimes you're just an easy target, but sometimes there may be enemies out there that don't have your best interest in mind. So know your enemy. There are hobbyists that are hackers out there. There are terrorists, state actors, where a country will actually have an entire division of the country designed to go out and do illegal, nefarious things. Hacking has gone corporate. Many of the hackers that are out there, fraudsters that are trying to take your money or do ransomware, whatever, they go in and they punch a clock and they get a salary and they have vacation pay and all of those things, but their job day in, day out is to find the opening in your organization. There are people out there that are called hacktivists. So there may be somebody that doesn't like law enforcement, and so they will take their skills in cyber areas and focus that against your police department or against the city council because they don't like whatever policy they came up with. They're criminals that are just out there trying to make a buck. And I saw a quote fairly recently on this. There was a large ransomware attack, and they were able to get a statement from the criminals, and they said, "We just want money. We don't want." They turned the data back over and unlocked the data, decrypted the data, and because they said, we got our ransom. We just want money. That's our job. Okay. Know your system. What does your system look like? Now, within the trust membership, we've got a ton of people on here today. And you come from all different organizations, and you have different types of networks. You have different types of devices. Some of you have lots of mobile devices. Some of you have only computers that stay in the office. Some of you have intricate systems, SCADA systems. How is all of this protected? What kind of software is involved? What does the hardware look like? Is it on the cloud or is it built? Do you have servers in-house? Who operates it? Who owns it? Sometimes we have organizations come in as a contractor and run all of our data for us. Who has access? Are there any back doors to get into our system? What happens if we lose all our passwords? Is there a way that we can get in? Do we have firewalls in place, antivirus software, all of those things? Like I said, we're not getting into the details on these today, but as an organization, especially if you're a leader in that organization, we should know the answers to these questions. How is our system configured, and how does that lead to risk for us? Because I don't care what the size of organization you have and whether you've got one contract IT person that you pay as a contractor, or we've got 10 people working in our IT department, and we have a data security specialist or chief information officer, or whatever the title may be. Everybody has risks, and we need to know what those systems look like and where those risks are. So we want to identify the risk. What is unique about us? What is it that people want from us? Now, all of our organizations have some money, right? We have bank accounts, and so that's a risk that's just global, that people can go after. But there may be things about our organization that are unique to us or that increase our risk. Something like we have law enforcement. Maybe I have personal information. So this PII is personal identifiable information. PHI, personal health information, and PCI, personal credit information. So all of these things are pieces of information that if are released could produce some exposure for our organization there. So where do we have that information? Why do we have it? I just want to bring a point up on that. If you don't need personal identifiable information, don't ask for it. Don't store it. If I don't need a social security number, there is no reason for me to have that social security number in my system. Now, there are certain industries, certain types of things that we do where we need that information, but don't ask for it if you don't need it. Be very careful about where that information is used. Just an example for that is we have our motor vehicle records information. So for each of your drivers, we get the driver's license number for them. As you give us that driver's license number, we don't want anything else associated with that. Just give us the number. I don't want a name. I don't want a birth date or the expiration date or anything like that. if you're going to email me that information, I just want the number. And if you got to take somebody off of your list, just give me their name. That's not those pieces of information by themselves really don't have a lot of value. But if I start pairing information together, that's where I can get into trouble. Okay, so learn what your risks are. Look at what your vulnerabilities are and take action on those. So I want to take just a quick section here and talk about the different types of attacks that are potentials that you could get hit with. And here's the whole list. I'm going to hit. I'm going to hit each one of these. And let's see. We have direct access and denial of, and these are distributed denial of service attacks. What are those? That's where people actually try to get into our network. And then the denial of service attacks, these are ones where an organization may send out a request to computers all over the world. Now, it might be your computer. There can be viruses that will do this, and all of these networks of computers will start hitting your website. And it's just like suddenly you get millions of hits on your website to shut it down. Well, this happens, and it's happened across the country with police organizations. If there's an officer involved shooting or something to that effect, they will go on go out and attack the website of that organization so it shuts it down. All right. So how do you stop direct access to your networks? Well, it's what we talked about before. Identify, are there backdoors, access points? Do you have a contractor doing this? When we change contractors, do we go about changing all those passwords and how those backdoors work so we don't leave that door open for them? Your system is only as good as your password, and just like me, many of you out there said, it's been a while since I changed my password, and I'm using the same password for a few accounts out there. Our security is only as good as those passwords that we have there. So change those often. Don't duplicate the passwords. You may consider your IT folks limiting the number of failed logins. Keep your operating systems, your computers, your software up to date. Those old, we may have some old legacy software that isn't supported anymore. We don't have ongoing tech support from the manufacturer. We need to get rid of those softwares. Find a replacement for those, because they're not constantly being updated to the latest threats. And so look through those systems and say, what's on our network? What are on our people's computers? And if it's something that we're not using anymore, let's delete it so we don't have those options for people to penetrate. Okay. Use only apps from trusted sources. What do I mean by that? Go to your Apple App Store or your Google Play Store, because those apps are vetted there. Don't download an app from a website. All right. Denial of service. This is where they send out or where they hit our website to the point where it shuts it down. So we want to look at where our web resources stored. We want to have plenty of bandwidth. Make sure our servers are set up to spread that load out. Spoofing. What the heck is spoofing? This is really communication that looks like it came from a trusted source. So they make it look like something that we work with regularly. It could be email from our bank. It could be Amazon. It could be, you name it, something that we trust. So what do we do to prevent this? Train employees on how to recognize emails. There may be just a subtle difference in the email address, a missing letter or inverted letters that the untrained eye or somebody just not paying attention won't notice it. So take a look at those things. If they're asking for account information, if they're asking for passwords and things like that, those are some telltale signs there. Hover over that password, hover over links to see where it's taking you. Don't click on links. That's probably, if you take one thing from this presentation today, don't click on a link in an email. They take you to bad places. Just some examples here of how that can happen. You can hover over a link and it will really show you where you're going without having to click on it. Okay. Other types of malware would be clickjacking. What this is if I go to click on something that seems right, but there's a transparent layer above that, I may be clicking on something where I don't want to go. When in doubt, close out. If things don't seem right, or I don't know how to, where's the little X that I can click out of this, just close the software program altogether. Close your browser out and don't click on those links. Phishing. What is phishing? Well, this is where they're trying to gather information from us. And this has gotten very sophisticated. There's phishing, there's spear phishing, and some other different variations as well. And what they're trying to do is to get us to go somewhere where we shouldn't, to purchase something, to give out information. And many times this comes from a respected source. So here's an example, and this is a little more on spear phishing. But we had some organizations in the state of Utah, public agencies, get an email. People in the finance department got an email from somebody, a high-ranking public official, that said, we're going to lose millions of dollars in grant funding if we don't pay this consultant X amount of dollars, $50,000 today, so they get our grant application in. They are requesting that we give this money to them now. I'm going into a meeting right now. I'm not going to be available. Just wire the money right away. And unfortunately, we had multiple agencies around the state bite on something just like this, to the tune of near $100,000. In losses for those things. There are others where a trusted person or a person high level in the organization will ask somebody to purchase gift cards and then ask for the numbers on the gift cards. So a couple of statistics around this. I was at a conference and the data security person from IHC Healthcare said that 93% of incoming email is stripped off and just eliminated from IHC servers every day. 93%, only 7% of the email gets through. But also in this same conference, they talked about if you can get 10 emails into a company, you're in. Because people will click. 25 to 50% will click on about any link that comes in. And even people who are really smart about this will click on the link. So remember that one really important thing, don't click the link in the email. Spear phishing, they make this look really good. They do a ton of research on your organization. They will go into your website. And, this is kind of a pain. We want to have good information out there. But if I share too much information on a website, then they can go in and see exactly what we're working on. They may look at our budget information and say, oh, hey, they're spending $10 million on this project. That's a pretty good mark to look at. And then they'll look at minutes from our meetings and figure out who the vendors are, figure out all the information that they might need to try to insert themselves into a conversation and get wire transfers. So prevention on this: train employees to confirm all money transfers. All of those need a secondary verification. No matter how urgent, we need to verify that. Person's in a meeting. If I'm transferring money and they're the person that needs to verify that, I need to talk to them. Look at your firewalls, spam filters, all of those things. To remember that 93% of incoming email to IHC gets deleted, and don't click on links. Different variations on phishing. Whaling is really a big boss as a target. Then there are things like smishing and vishing. This is where you'll get a text message that may actually seem to be accurate. All right. Ransomware. Unfortunately, many of our members have had ransomware come into their organization. It gets there in one way or another, either clicking a link through an email, but it can come into our organization. And what it does is it encrypts our data. It gets into our servers and limits the ability for us to get to our data, or completely eliminates it. And it may go throughout our networks. So our backups, our cloud, and it could encrypt all of that. And that has happened multiple times. Then you'll receive a ransom demand from the hackers, and you get to decide, are we going to pay thousands of dollars in the hopes that these bad people are going to release that? So what do we do to handle ransomware? This is something we need to have a talk with our IT personnel. We want to partition and limit the access to our servers, so there's a physical separation between our backups and from our regular servers. Backups are essential. Now we might lose some data, but if we can go back to a backup, then we can at least get the majority of that back. Encryption is important. If they can't read it, they can't get to it. If you have a problem with this, get help. Sometimes this data can be saved, but there are resources out there to help. Don't click on links. One important thing: don't click on links. That's the message that we should take home today. Lots of stuff to cover. Build your plan. We want to build a plan for our responsibilities. Now, this is our overall program covering data and also financial information as well. Financial transfers, those things. We've got to have a plan built around these. We want to assess those vulnerabilities. Where are those? Well, if people can just transfer money without a secondary verification, that's a vulnerability. That's a problem that we need to handle. What are the steps we need to take after a hack? Who do we call? What do we do? Now, I will be sending out to everybody that signed up for this webinar today a boilerplate response policy. Take a look at it. And, if you don't have one in place, it may be a good place to start. If you've got a really good one, I'd love to see it. I think this one that I'm sending out is pretty darn good, but let's work and share together on that. Number 7, plan and prepare. Negotiate contracts before something bad happens. If we're going to need resources to come in from an IT standpoint, let's negotiate that contract ahead of time, because when all of our data is locked up, those contractors can really demand whatever price that they want to help us get that put back together. So negotiate that contract way ahead. Physical security of our devices. Laptops. We have so many mobile devices now that it's difficult to keep track of all of those. But some simple things that we can deal with when it comes to security of those devices: have them automatically require a password, shut down and require a password after so many minutes or even seconds, it seems like sometimes. Make sure on your phone that it does require a passcode. And as frustrating as it was when we went to a 6-digit code on our phones, that increased our security significantly. Think about access to our systems, our public Wi-Fi, how that works. Think about disks and thumb drives, bringing in resources like that. Many organizations have a no thumb drive policy because these thumb drives can be infected with malware. And if we put that into our computer, I've even read reports of situations where a brand new thumb drive, never used, had malware on it. So consider those types of things. There are file sharing services that will allow us to transfer large files without having to have those external drives plugged into our computers. Think about, and I know this is a little bit dated now, but this was just kind of an example. If somebody was walking along in your organization and they found on the floor a disk that was entitled salary information, would that be tempting to take a look at? Maybe. And so sometimes people will intentionally drop things like this that looks interesting, or maybe it's a thumb drive. Oh, hey, somebody dropped a thumb drive there. That's $20. And so people will use that, and they intentionally put these around to be able to get their malware into our organization. Okay, virtual security. We talked about this a little bit more, and this gets more into the details of firewalls, antivirus software, all encryption, all of those things. This is a discussion that we need to have with our IT personnel and testing our system to see what the vulnerabilities are. And we'll talk about some resources to do that here in just a few minutes. Training. Everyone, I am really pleased that as many people as clicked or as answered our poll today as did. I think it was almost 50% of you have done training on cybersecurity in the last year. Good job. Train everyone and train regularly so people remember what these things, what's going on out there. We have some great resources at the Trust. Our Cantola service has a great training that you can push out to all of your users out there, all of your staff. And when they complete it, they have to take a test, and you can have full visibility on whether they've completed that. There are state and federal resources as well. I'll talk about those resources in just a couple of minutes. Contractors. I know many of you out there may be small organizations and you don't have an IT professional working there, and you have to rely on contractors. Well, this is similar to any other contractor that we deal with. We want to vet those people and ensure that they're reputable, that we check their references, that we see what their resources are, and so they're capable of doing it. And it's not just that person that, oh, hey, he's pretty good with computers, let's hire him to take care of all of our systems here. That's pretty risky. So take the time to vet and verify all of those resources. Okay. Test your system. Who will click? There's an organization called CISA, and I'll give you the link here it's CISA.gov, but they are a division of Homeland Security, and they will test your systems. You can sign up, and it's free testing. And so they will phish your systems. They will test your system on a regular basis to see how we're doing, and you'll get a weekly report on it. Get or stay covered. It's a challenging time. I don't know if Ryan wants to talk about this at all. Right now is a challenging time in the world of cyber and the losses around that. As a member of the property program with the Trust, generally you have cyber coverage. If you have questions about what your coverage is, please talk to your risk finance consultant here at the Trust. We want to make sure that you're covered on everything. But here's the important part. It is a challenging time right now in the insurance industry in general, and particularly in the cyber world. And so underwriting is much more of a challenge right now. Each year we will send out a cyber application. For years we didn't do anything, and it's changed, and it's becoming more and more of a challenge to do that. And we're going to be expected to do more and more as time goes on in proving that our data resources are adequately protected. Ryan, I see you unmuted.
Yeah, we had a little bit of difficulty making me a co-host, but you're doing a great job, so I'll let you keep going. I just wanted to reiterate what Jason has been saying. Over the insurance market in general has hardened significantly over the last couple of years. It started really at the beginning of the pandemic. And when we say hard market, sometimes people don't know exactly what we mean by that. But for many, many years, it was a soft market, meaning you could get a lot of coverage with really high limits and low deductibles for relatively low premiums, really low rates. All of that started to shift a couple of years ago in the property and liability markets, but especially with cyber. Cyber is probably the hardest line of insurance in the entire insurance industry right now. And it's largely because the wave of claims has crashed over the industry, and these cyber carriers have been paying a lot of claims. And so now you see all of these prerequisites that are required not only for coverage, but just to get a quote on the table, there are prerequisites like having multi-factor authentication in place, having system patches in place, and some of these different things that Jason is talking about. And so I won't take too long here, Jason, and steal your thunder, but truly, for the longest time, trust members, generally speaking, depending on what lines of coverage you have enjoyed cyber coverage at no additional cost. And again, if you want to know what that coverage looks like, reach out to your representative. But we haven't even really had to provide exposure data either up until last year. And so we fully recognize that the renewal application that you see in My Trust is lengthy. It may seem a little cumbersome, but it's really because that's what these underwriters are requiring to make sure that they want to stay on the risk. And so our fear, honestly, this last year has been that at some point, not only will the coverage that our members enjoy cost money, which it usually does anyway, it's usually a separate line of insurance with a separate premium, but our fear is that maybe a large portion of the pool, maybe half the members in the pool, no longer qualify for coverage, and they wake up one day, without coverage. And so it's just critical that we get involved in this stuff that Jason is talking about, that we do these trainings, that we notify our staff and our employees, that we really work closely with our IT professionals, whether they are internal or whether you outsource that, and make sure these safeguards are in place, because if not, truly you may not have coverage. And really coverage should be an afterthought anyway, because once you've got an incident that you're confronted with, you've already got a huge headache on your hands, whether you have coverage or not. And so I'll kind of turn the time back over to you, Jason, but just kind of to put a cap on what I'm saying, not only have carriers become more stringent in who they will cover, but they've also implemented sublimits, which are basically underlying limits embedded within the policy that may trim back the coverage you're used to. And it's because they want to limit their exposure on what they may have to pay for preventable losses. A lot of these things are easily preventable if we'll just take the time to do it. And so because of that, you'll see sublimits in areas that you haven't seen in the past. So anyway, I hope that's helpful. Any questions or anything I can touch on more, Jason?
No, I think that's great, Ryan. And if you have questions, type those in the chat box, and we'll get Ryan to answer those because he knows all those important answers there. It's just such a critical time right now in this area. We just attended a conference, and a conference of other pools similar to the trust from around the country. And it was staggering to hear some of the losses that they've had, and really what they're requiring of their members to do. So that's why we're doing a continuing series on this. We want to get you the basics today. This is the basic level of what you need to understand and the things that we need to get going on. But realize that, as Ryan said, we have to get ahead of this now, so we maintain our coverage there, and so we prevent these bad things from happening. So thank you, Ryan. I appreciate you hanging around for for as long as you have to chime in there. So last is get connected, learn about the resources that are available, and share information with others. One thing that I've seen over time is most people, it's kind of a little bit shameful to get hacked, to have a ransomware or whatever, and people are pretty quiet about those problems they've had. Well, we want to share, we want to work together, so we're able to prevent these things for other people, and thus we've sent out some alerts, and so people understand what is out there. Some resources that are available. I talked about CISA. CISA. And it is an organization that's a cybersecurity and infrastructure security agency. So what this is a division of Homeland Security. And this, in the past, we've had resources from the FBI and a few other resources. This is a really powerful tool that we have working with this agency. They will test our system. Like I said, you can go in and sign up, and they will phish our system. They will regularly test the system for vulnerabilities and give you a report, and it doesn't cost us anything. They have tons of information. They have a catalog of known exploitable vulnerabilities, so we can look ahead and see what we are looking at. They provide this cyber hygiene vulnerability scanning. They'll scan our information, our networks, to see if they will work, and they have a ton of powerful information there. We also want to make sure that everybody is participating with the state auditor. It's a legal requirement in the state to do a fraud risk assessment, but use the information from that. If we have systems in place to deal with the risks that are pointed out by this fraud risk assessment, we will prevent the vast majority of these scams that are out there. So get online with the state auditor's website. They have some tools there that will show us really how well we're doing. We have a responsibility to put this to provide this information to the state auditor's office. Let's use it. There's some other resources out there. InfraGard is a public-private partnership for information sharing. So whenever there's a breach or a hack, that information can go into there. FBI is helpful if there ever is a breach. Other local government agencies are good places to start. There's some training information from SANS. It's a local information, and I've got the links are here. Don't click links on the next page. And then the Salt Lake Chamber of Commerce and Utah Technology Council also have a lot of resources available as well. So here's some links that may be helpful. I will send out these slides to everybody who signed up for the presentation. We also have that boilerplate plan that we'll be sending out. And like I said, we will have more to come, and we'll have additional professionals that will come in and talk about your data security, the specifics that I don't even understand. We will have people talk about that and help you build these programs so we can sleep better at night. All right, that's the presentation today. Do we have any questions? Apologize, I've gone a little longer than I'd planned, but if you have questions or comments, please type those into the chat box. Mike, how are we doing?
Great. I mean, no questions right now. I will see if
that means we're doing great.
Come in. Means you did a good job. So,
well, it's a massive challenge that we face out there, because technology is everywhere. It's part of every aspect of our lives, and so it's a risk that we just like every other safety hazard or liability risk that's out there, this one has come to the forefront, and we need to address it. So.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, it's such a huge topic nowadays. I mean, you mentioned the conference we went to, and I mean, of insurance professionals, and there were multiple sessions on cybersecurity. It seemed like that whole conference revolved around this topic. So it's out there. So this is a very good topic to talk about in your organizations for sure.
Yeah, Mike, looks like some questions may have popped up.
Just thank yous.
Oh, thank yous. Okay, great. Well, thank you, folks. I really appreciate your time. If you have questions, if you want to chat about this, if you have something that's worked really well for you, a policy, or maybe you're a small organization and you have an awesome contractor that has really done a great job for you. All of that information, that's the wonderful thing about being local government agencies. We're not in competition. We can share information back and forth, and we'd be happy to facilitate that. Thank you very much, folks. Please,
Jason,
yeah,
real quick, one last question. We're just wanting some more information on the CISA free testing and training that's available.
Yeah, so CISA.gov. CISA.gov, and I will send out some information specific to what's available there. But yeah, it's a federal agency, and now they will do some in-depth training or in-depth testing where they'll actually come to your facility, but they're what they say 10 months out.
10 months out right now. Yeah.
On that, because it's really being utilized. But the regular scanning, you can sign up for that now. So I will send that information out with this, with the materials to everybody who signed up for the webinar. So good question. Okay, that got it, Mike?
That's it.
All right, folks. Thank you so much. Go out and have a safe day.
Thanks, everyone.